What does it mean to be expectant in your business? Not overreaching and asking the Lord to simply bless what you have already planned, but to truly be expectant. Recently, our church has been walking through the book of Ruth, and one of our women's ministry leaders gave an incredible sermon on chapter 2 of Ruth. And it got me thinking about expectancy. In my obedient sisters text group that I have with four other women, one of the women is always talking about being expectant of the Lord. So, what does this mean for us as Christian women in business? How can we be expectant? And what are some of the components of being expectant? Let's start with a definition. To be expectant, according to Merriam-Webster, is having or showing an excited feeling that something is about to happen, especially something pleasant and interesting. If you are of my age group in your 50s, maybe a little younger, you may remember the Heinz ketchup commercial that slowly shows the ketchup coming out of the bottle to the tune of Carly Simon's song Anticipation. I'm not going to sing for you today. But in a biblical context, to be expectant is to have a hopeful, confident anticipation of the Lord, of his promises, of the character that he shows us throughout the Bible showing up in our lives. It's not an unrealistic expectation of favor or prosperity necessarily. You know, we don't do prosperity gospel around here, but to be grounded in his truth and in trust that because he is who he says he is, that we can be expectant. Is that expectant that everything will go as we planned? No. But expectant that he already knows, he's already planned, and that he works all things together for the good of those who follow him. It's actively waiting for the Lord's fulfillment of his word. And sometimes I think as we're trying to wait on the Lord and be expectant, we're waiting for big things when he moves sometimes in little things. We overlook the fact that the Lord is a Lord of agriculture, of multiplication. I've been talking about this a lot lately that you plant a tomato plant, but you get multiple tomatoes. This is how the Lord works. And so sometimes we overlook a small movement, a single connection, a chance, quote unquote, encounter that's actually Him leading us in a direction, leading us to something new or different. And we can be expectant of that. As His daughter, you are engaged in and inherit the promises that are in the Word. You have an eager anticipation instead of passively waiting. So let me share a few notes that I took in Ruth and then talk about a few ways that we can live in expectation. The sermon stated that expectation and expectancy moves belief from passive to active. There is still patience involved, but we have faith. So now we're actively anticipating what he has for us. But we have to be in the right posture. In other words, surrendered, allowing his way, walking in the center of his will, seeking him. Some of the disciplines that I'm going to be talking about in one of the chapters of my upcoming book, Redefining Hustle, Navigating Success with Jesus, is the discipline of rest, the discipline of seeking, the discipline of abiding, the discipline of mindset. These are all disciplines that when we're engaging them, it bolsters our expectancy of his movement. In Ruth, in chapter 2, verse 10, after Boaz has said to her, "Listen, my daughter, don't go gather grain in another field, and don't leave this one, but stay here close to my female servants." In 2 verses down, she falls face down, bowing to the ground, and says to her, "Why have I found favor with you, so that you notice me, although I am a foreigner?" Now, let's back up. Ruth is a Moabite. She was not a follower of Jesus, but her husband and her sister-in-law's husband, and her mother-in-law, Naomi's husband, all died. And so Naomi and her daughters-in-law come back to Naomi's hometown. And as this happens, Ruth, obediently and expectantly gives up on the gods she's known and says, "I will follow your God." So here she is bowing before Boaz. She has a posture of respect. She has a posture of expectancy that Naomi's God is going to provide for her. When we are expectant, we are saying to the Lord that you are worthy of my expectation. You're worthy of my faithfulness. You're worthy because your promises are true. So let's take a look at a few ways that we can be expectant. Number one, we can be actively waiting. Not passively, not moaning and groaning, not constantly repeating, "Lord, when are you going to move?" But Lord, show me where you want me to go today. Show me what you want me to do today, because I am expectant that your promises are true. I am expectant that something is awaiting me there. I am expectant that in my obedience, someone will be blessed, as will the kingdom. It is actively showing up at his feet from a posture of trust, readiness to be obedient, readiness to worship him, waiting in anticipation for his response. Sometimes the women I work with will say, "I don't think I'm hearing God." And I say, "Well, how have you heard him before?" "Well, I heard him through music, or this is what I've experienced." "Well, are you looking for him elsewhere? Are you looking for him to say yes and bless the things that you want him to bless, versus laying them at the foot of the cross and letting them be his?" Remember that your business is a vehicle for kingdom impact, and it is in his hands. In fact, it's not even your business, it's his, right? And the more we are surrendered, the more we can be expectant of where he might take us. We might not like where we're going. We may not like what he tells us to do. But if we are expectant and trusting his promises, we know that it will all work together for our good and the good of those that he has positioned us to impact. The second thing is that expectancy is never based on our human perspective. It's always based on his promises. It is looking forward to the fulfillment of his promises, as has been demonstrated by the saints of the Bible. He has promised that he has you, that he made you, and he made you for purpose. He has promised an overflow of grace and mercy. He has promised that he knows you and that you know him and his sheep hear his name. So our expectancy is based on his promises. Our expectancy is that he will intervene, that he will move, that he will work things together. My husband is furloughed right now as I record this, and I'm expecting an invoice for some consulting work that I'm doing. And that invoice is going to be large enough for covering 2 of my husband's missing paychecks. I am expectant that the Lord is going to use those dollars. I am expectant that he is intervening. I had planned to use those dollars for something very different. But I am expectant, because the Lord is my great provider, that he will use these dollars in the best way possible. but I'm expectant that we are provided for. We have food in our refrigerator, we can make our mortgage payment, etc. So it is a belief that the Lord will move and intervene in some way. Maybe not in our timing, maybe not the way we want him to, but we are expectant that he will move because his word promises this. And it is a posture of readiness, always ready. I want to go to the armor of God for just a second, because I think sometimes we overlook this point about having on the armor of God and what it means to have our sandals on. So, in in Ephesians 6:10 through 20, it talks about Christian warfare. And it tells us in verse 13 to take up the full armor of God so that we may resist the devil, resist evil each day, and be prepared to take our stand. So we stand with the truth, the word, like a belt around our waist to hold us steady and to hold all of our tools and all of our armor together. Righteousness like armor on your chest, your feet sandaled with readiness for the gospel of peace. Our feet sandaled, ready to move, in a stance where we're expectant of what the Lord is going to tell us to do. You know, the word says in Proverbs 20:24 that the Lord directs our steps. Let me go there so I can read it directly to you. Chapter 20 of Proverbs, verse 24. Even a courageous person's steps are determined by the Lord. So how can anyone understand his own way? In other words, how can I rely on myself? My steps are ordained and ordered by the Lord, but I have to be in a posture of readiness, ready to move at any time. I have to have a flexibility. I have to be ready to share the gospel. Jesus can come at any time. And I'm sure, like me, there are days where you think, "Come, Jesus, come," as CeCe Winans sings. Come now, please. But we have to be ready. We have to be ready to move forward in anticipation of what he has for us. Friends, you get to be expectant. It is a choice you make. So, how will you be expectant today in your business? How will you encourage and inspire your clients to be expectant? And what can they expect from you as an ambassador of Jesus? Remember this, that God made you ambitious, but he didn't make you for business as usual. I'm going to turn this on its head a bit. Business as usual says you need to expect the outcomes that you want. Business as usual says you need to expect that competition is coming for you. Business as usual says you need to expect that it is going to be hard, toil, tiring, exhausting work. But friends, the Lord didn't make you to toil. Yes, he gave you work to do, but he didn't make you to string yourself out and to compromise your faith and to compromise your marriage and your children and everything else to do the work and chase success. No, no, no. He didn't make you for that business as usual, because he made you to navigate success with Jesus. And that is being expectant. I pray that this bless you. I cannot wait to hear about it. And I mentioned earlier that my new book is coming in January. So jump on my email list, go download the 4 Keys audio devotional. You'll see the link in the show notes, erinharrigan.com/devotional, so that you can hear about the book and receive your invitation to be on the book launch team, as well as all of the other things that the Lord is giving me to serve you. And until we're together next time, I pray for and I encourage you to tune out the world, tune into God's truth, and turn up focus, because then you will walk with clarity, serenity, and fulfillment. I'll see you on the next episode.